Snow White stood on the cliff of the dark forest, her cape billowing in the wind, her battle armor gleaming coldly under the moonlight. Her gaze was as steely as her resolve, gripping a ruby-encrusted longsword. This time she was no longer the helpless princess. She was a warrior, leading 7 loyal dwarves against the wicked ruler who had seized her kingdom, the Queen of Cards. Legend had it that the Queen of Cards came from the dark world, wielding eerie magic to control an indomitable army, the Card Soldiers. They carried razor-sharp cards as weapons, moved with unnatural agility, and were devoid of emotion. Her reign had plunged the entire kingdom into terror, the palace walls stained with blood, and loyal knights had fallen one by one. In the initial chaos, Snow White had been rescued by the dwarves and hidden in the dark forest for years. Now, it was time for vengeance. The dwarves were no longer mere miners. Each had undergone years of training to become elite warriors. Grumpy had turned into an explosives expert, carrying various bombs and traps. Happy had become a berserker, wielding dual axes and rampaging across the battlefield. Bashful had mastered assassination, moving unseen to eliminate enemy generals, while the wise Doc had become their strategist, formulating intricate battle plans. Deep within the dark forest, they had built a secret fortress, preparing for their strike against the Queen of Cards' army. Night fell, and war drums thundered. Led the dwarf battalion as they stealthily infiltrated the Queen's city. But the moment they stepped through the gates, eerie laughter echoed from all around. Little princess, you've finally decided to show yourself. The Queen of Cards' voice came from every direction, and countless playing cards hovered in the air, each transforming into a soldier, drawing their weapons. The battle erupted instantly. Snow White leaped forward, her sword flashing like a shooting star, slicing through the approaching Card soldiers. The dwarves fought ferociously. Explosions, clashing blades, and battle cries filled the night. City walls crumbled, flames roared, and the entire city turned into a chaotic battleground. The Queen of Cards stood atop her high tower, raising her hands. More soldiers flooded in like a tidal wave. Her crown held a dark heart, pulsing with an ominous red glow. Did you really think you could defeat me with this rabble? How naive! Snow White wiped the blood from her face and smirked. Then let's find out. She pulled a magical red apple from her belt and crushed it in her hand. Fiery energy engulfed her sword, the flames licking hungrily at the steel. She charged at the Queen of Cards, and the battle reached its climax. On the tower's summit, their clash sent shockwaves through the entire city. The Queen summoned more dark magic, her Card soldiers seemingly endless, surging forward to overwhelm Snow White and her allies. Dwarves fought back with unyielding ferocity. Grumpy detonated the western tower, creating a pathway to the Queen's stronghold. Happy roared as he hacked through ranks of Card soldiers. Bashful moved unseen, striking down the Queen's elite guards. And Doc used alchemy to generate a protective shield, buying them time. Snow White dueled the Queen atop the tower, her sword ablaze with the red apple's fire, its scorching heat searing through the Queen's magic. The Queen gritted her teeth, flicking her wrist, Countless cards transformed into razor-sharp projectiles, hurtling towards Snow White. With a mighty swing, Snow White's fiery sword unleashed a blazing arc, incinerating the oncoming cards. She lunged forward, driving her blade toward the queen's chest, only for the queen to dissolve into a wisp of dark smoke. "Did you think it would be that easy to kill me?" The queen's voice echoed through the air. The next instant, the entire tower trembled, and the ground beneath the city cracked open. The Queen of Cards had unleashed her full dark magic, summoning a massive, swirling vortex in the sky, pouring malevolent energy into the battlefield. Snow White clenched her jaw, tightening her grip on her sword. She knew this was the final moment. Just then, a golden light shone from afar. It was the legendary royal sword, left behind by Snow White's mother, hidden deep within the kingdom's sacred temple. Only a true ruler could awaken its power. "Retrieve the sword," Doc shouted. Immediately activated his stealth abilities, weaving through the collapsing ruins of the city, racing toward the temple. Meanwhile, Snow White continued her relentless battle against the queen, their swords clashing with brilliant sparks. Grumpy set up his final explosives, blowing apart the city walls to create more chaos and buy Bashful time. Happy, still roaring, carved a bloody path through the endless card soldiers. At last, Bashful reached the temple. There, resting in the sacred chamber, was the long, slumbering royal sword, its blade adorned with runes, radiating divine light. He took a deep breath, reached out, and the moment his fingers touched the hilt, a golden explosion of energy enveloped him. "Snow White!" Bashful's voice rang across the battlefield. Snow White turned to see Bashful holding the sword, its golden glow piercing the night. He hurled the weapon toward her, and in an instant, a thunderous force split the heavens. Snow White caught the royal sword, feeling its immense power surge through her veins. Her armor transformed into a brilliant golden hue. She had become the true ruler of the kingdom. "Queen of Cards, your reign ends now." Snow White leaped high, the royal sword carving through the sky, descending upon the queen's crown, shattering the dark heart.